Welcome back, guys. We are here at the 2020 LCK. It's me, Valdez, with LS. And game number one felt like a bit of a draft win. Afreeca a little bit inactive, we can say, in the mid-game to allow them to try to come back in that one. SANDBOX taking huge advantage of that. They allowed Dove on the Azir, who we both thought was the key player of the game, to just scale up and do a really nice job in that Pantheon lane. The Pantheon looking pretty useless for that one. So SANDBOX able to come ahead 1-0 so far.
Yeah, and basically, at this point, you have to wonder what Afreeca's thinking. Now, they are going over to the red side, but for a team that had options to basically thematically counter what SANDBOX were trying to do and then opted out of that, you have to wonder if they're really even going to utilize the red side all that well, especially because now they're going to be the ones that have to ban the absolute monsters. And we also saw that they banned Ornn on blue side. They don't want to play Ornn. We take a look at player of the game. It is going to be Dove, 2-0 in 11, 27% of the damage for his team. He was able to crash this wave, obviously, into mid. Pantheon not able to give any assistance. He roams down here with Jarvan. And I was really surprised. Mystic must have known that he was already dead, but didn't actually elect to get the last 2 CS. Doesn't even issue any commands there. It's just a little minor thing to talk about. Keen here probably feels like he's in a bit of an awkward angle. Tries to hard engage, gets trapped inside of Cat, does some superplexes, and then dies upon landing. That's like one of those Olympic things when they do the gymnastics, but they end up like having a really bad landing. You know what I'm talking about?
They fall flat on their face.
Or yeah, they like break their calf or something. It's really what? All right, so no one can actually see what is on our screen right now, but 2 observers voted for support. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that it was
we know
GSAT.
them personally as well. If we were there in the break, I would ask them like, "What are you guys doing? Like, what are those?" I'm really not sure. I mean, Karma obviously threw out some Qs in the laning phase and provided shields, and we were talking about this actually during the break. How basically nobody really had a pop-off performance, but Dove did feel like the only person who was doing things. I can understand Karma votes because she did shields and like helped her team in team fights, but definitely felt like Dove was the player of the game there. Either way, he did win, so it's not like the vote was stolen away or anything. By the way, as well, guys, we do have a substitution. Dread, unfortunately, even though I felt like he had a pretty decent game, I don't think it was his fault. He is going to be subbed out for Spirit, who is going to be coming into the jungle as we hop into pick ban for game 2.
Well, let's see what SANDBOX are going to open now, being on the blue side. We'll also see what Spirit can actually add. Maybe we'll get a Karthus game. That would be pretty exciting if we could end up seeing that. Aphelios does get banned away. SANDBOX. Now SANDBOX are the ones banning away Ornn on blue, and that is very surprising. Maybe they want to get their hands on Senna or Kalista, something of that nature. As Afreeca, what are they going to end up banning? It's going to be Senna, and so Kalista is still available and on the table.
Varus, another pick that has seen more and more play. It's good into the bottom lane against Senna, but it's also flexible. I mean, we've seen it in the mid lane a couple of times already in the LCK. So it does get taken off the board here on blue. I think the obvious ban here is Kalista, unless you feel like on the side of SANDBOX they can't play Kalista, but what I remember, Root was a pretty good Kalista. So they are going to take that away. Should be the set going over to the side of SANDBOX.
So set first pick, able to be flexed, 3 roles, mid, top, and support. And Afreeca now going to have to elect how they want to respond. They might just do the dreaded Aatrox into set matchup, feeling maybe comfortable to try to do the reverse. As we do see a lot of players will actually pick Aatrox into set. But so far, Rumble and Jarvan, that's a very powerful combo. Very aggro. And Afreeca, how are they going to try to round this out? Kai'Sa is being picked blind. And a lot of AD carries have been removed. Obviously, Ezreal still on the table, but Ezreal would be a self-counter pick. And it would also be a bit off-theme. It would end up being sort of like the Ezreal that plays a like cleanup, like janitor material. Yeah. As Lucian is being hovered and potentially going to get locked in again. And this is really surprising to see this happening twice now.
Rate. 3 and 12 is Lucian. And I don't know, it kind of gives me flashbacks to when Griffin was doing funnel Lucian. I don't know if you remember that. They were putting a mid lane and funneling him during that funnel time, and it just did not work out. But it does mean that they don't have like this ultra scaling AD carry with a lot of range. He's more of like a head first type of guy. And I suppose it fits with Jarvan and Rumble. Didn't look half bad on it in game number 1. Again, I don't think it was his fault that they lost. But definitely interesting to see Kai'Sa up against Lucian this early on.
Yeah, it's very peculiar. Afreeca, they're banning away the Nautilus now. That's one of the old combos, Kai'Sa Nautilus. As SANDBOX, they did ban away the LeBlanc. Afreeca now have to decide on their last ban. It's going to be Morgana. And that's making me wonder if if a Leona or a Thresh is in the mind of Afreeca. See if they maybe lock that in on R4 and reserve the counter pick or the flexibility of the Rumble for mid and top on R5. SANDBOX, they ban away the Yuumi. And so let's take a look at what they're going to do here. It's actually going to be an Alistar being hovered. So Lucian Alistar, a bit of a blast to the past, but what you're noticing right now is that all of these champions are very short range. And they have a heavy reliance on getting ahead, engaging. This is very akin to Afreeca's game number 1 team composition. And we saw what ended up happening there. If SANDBOX pivots into just more scaling, more long-range disengage. Champions even like Cassiopeia, really, really good in a spot like this. Azir, yet again, is going to come out here for SANDBOX. Braum, another disengagey type of champion. Leona being hovered. Galio, a beautiful champion in a spot like this. Also, the ability to steal it away, potentially, from Afreeca. They're going to pivot back to Braum. It seems like they're deciding both of these champions thematically slot in really well. They're both really good at answering what Afreeca's trying to achieve. Personally, I think Galio a little bit better because you have the option to steal him away from Afreeca, but then just his ultimate ability against what Afreeca's trying to do is really, really strong. But instead, they do lock in the Braum. Afreeca now hovering a Zoe, and yeah, Zoe's it's a pretty strong stat checker champion, but when you look at the champions that she's getting paired with, she doesn't really have a theme. There's not really a very big purpose. She is locked in. Very bizarre to see the lack of synergy within Afreeca's team composition. This Zoe now is the one that's going to be out of place and just really conducting herself as an isolated champion in this comp.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of going to be alone. There is some pick potential where you can Sleepy Trouble Bubble and try to follow up with Equalizer and have some engage in that way, but outside of that, it's kind of like she's just there on an island in the mid lane against Azir. At least it's not Pantheon. That's all I'll say. I don't want to see that matchup again. The Azir absolutely dumping on the Pantheon, and Fly did not have a great game on that one, so will be a bit of a switch up. As what are you thinking about this? What are you thinking about this draft? Any predictions?
I'm thinking that SANDBOX have a much stronger draft all around. The only thing that is a little bit worrying, though, is Zoe in mid lane is going to fare a lot better against the Azir than the Pantheon, as well as now Afreeca find themselves with the Jarvan, the Lucian down in bot lane. So we'll see now what happens with SANDBOX lacking control around the right-hand quadrant of the map. And that might prove to be a way out for Afreeca's team composition if they can somehow threaten and bring this game to Soul Point.
Yeah, absolutely. So looks like we're just about ready to hop into game number 2. Spirit back onto the Jarvan. If you guys remember, he used to play support AP Jarvan. So definitely knows how to pick up that champion. We'll be excited to see if that sub can change things up here in terms of the play for the side of SANDBOX, as it is game number 2. Dove, he picked up the player of the game on the Azir and is going to give that champion another shot.
Sejuani starting out with a very defensive opening, as is basically both parties. Just doing a 5-point start. If there were going to be, or if one of these two teams would decide to try to do something aggressive early on, it would definitely be, it would have been SANDBOX with the Braum and the Sejuani. And at this point, we take a look at the runes, and there it is. Born in Sin. Double Scorch on the side of Afreeca.
Oh no.
And so Zoe can't really kill Azir straight up. Rumble can't really kill Set straight up. These are very bizarre rune choices that, even when you factor in the jungle matchup and the overall dynamic of stuff, what they should be looking to achieve is, rather than trying to find ways to kill a blue side Set, who is it's very easy for him to play defensively, or to try to flip killing the Azir in mid lane or something of that nature. Play towards the strengths of the mid lane and the bot lane. Try to focus on getting all of those dragons, and then looking for something in the mid game centered around like a Zoe bubble or something like that, because you're not going to find super edges early on, and if you end up hitting the stats tab or something and seeing how much damage that Scorch ends up doing, it's just not worth it, especially because you eventually get to Gathering Storm, and it's not like Gathering Storm is anything to scoff at the later stages of the game, and it does something.
Speaking of doing something, Spirit just gonna run on through. He shoves his spear into the caster minions and steals one of the XP from them. And then he goes on his merry way up to the red buff, so it's going to be a little bit annoying. Steals that one away from Fly. Was looking to get pretty aggressive on the Jarvan, as we did see. He was able to steal one little popcorn chicken at the same time. Just going to go on his merry way. The bottom lane is kind of interesting. We don't get to see Alistar all too often. But Jelly definitely a guy that has tried his hand at the cow from time to time. And so I'm curious to see if he can actually make that work. As Dove just going to face check into the brush, the flash into the Shurima Shuffle, though, will be able to get him to safety.
He's able to fade that gank. Sejuani is actually going to be the one finding herself with the CS advantage, but Jarvan obviously going to be able to get over to the Scuttle Crab. Still does have Zoe in mid lane, and you can see that Punch is actually making his way up to top lane, perhaps anticipating Jarvan's arrival, and this would be a fantastic counter gank if it would end up working. Oh man.
Oh, I think it is going to work. Oh, they're going for a dive, actually. They should be able to pick up this kill, but now Spirit should be able to get Lonely down. Let's see, though. Goes for the flag and drag, picks up the kill, and now a level up here onto Punch is going to be frozen up.
So it ends up being a 1-for-1, but Keen doesn't get an assist, and Keen immediately teleports back in. We'll see what Lonely's response is going to be. Now, Punch has enough HP to actually stick around, and you can see actually if he goes down onto the mini-map, and Jarvan is not still here, but you can see Lonely playing it really safe, going boots plus null magic mantle, wants to get to the Merc Tread, super value against the Zoe and the Rumble. As they go for the dive, It was a really bizarre sequence of events. Sejuani wasn't the one to be tanking turret aggro, utilizing the Aftershock, and so eventually Set ended up going down. Not the end of the world, though, by any means. Getting advantages on Set when he's such an integral part to the mid-game teamfights is super good.
Yeah, and a lot of the reason why they were able to even set up that gank is because one-on-one, Keen actually underestimated the Set and flashed away, had to flash from the Haymaker, and that just means that he's a sitting duck on the Rumble that doesn't have all that much mobility, of course. His Fly is looking to get aggressive there. He had the GLP, but not really going to happen. A Spirit really liking the popcorn chickens of Punch. He says, these are mine, actually.
Well, he's going to be able to get it. Punch not able to go in there, even though he did have Smite available. Doesn't have any vision over the camp. And so as it stands elsewhere, though, everyone is pretty much playing pretty safe in Standard. Nothing too chaotic happening. We have a bot lane reset occurring. And top lane, surplus of many minions. Now, Lonely's going to hit level 6 on that minion as the camera panned away, and this means that Punch, with the size of that minion wave, going to be able to move up here. Now, they want to do this before the melee and the cannon both end up dying. I believe that would give 6 to Keen, even though he has an 8. Some of the... Oh, actually, he gets it on the melee.
Oh, and that's perfect timing. As you mentioned, he's going to be able to push that one out. Spirit is not here because he's taking the Infernal Drake. Keen says, well, I'm going to try to take some of these as well, I suppose, if you're going to help me out with that. Can lose the wave and just take the jungle camp, I suppose. Shouldn't get too far behind.
So now, getting the Infernal Dragon for Afreeca, it is really valuable. Even if the stats don't mean a whole bunch early on, it's going to help them in the mid-transition once the game gets to that point, because they need as much ammo as they can possibly get. Now, Ocean Dragon was rolled second, so this does mean that 50% of the time, we can get a really bad trade. If Cloud Dragon comes up next, it's pretty disastrous. Jelly trying to go for a trade. Now, Mystic and Jelly are getting some nice sizable advantages down here on their own in bot lane. I think currently going to be up about 11 CS after Kai'Sa gets all of the minions. Also has a turret plate. And Spirit actually loses the Smite fight over the red. Punches, I believe, beating him in experience.
Yeah, I mean, after taking that camp, you would have to imagine that he does gain the advantage there, but there's a lot of stuff for him to farm in his own jungle. It's going to take him a while to get through all of that, actually. He does want to get in there. Could also hand off blue to the Zoe. We'll have to see where exactly he's going to attack first with the... he's actually going to come in here and smite the minion. He's been really loving these chickens, by the way. He's going up to his own chickens. And he's going to say, yep, that will get me 6, and now I will start to make my move. Maybe trying to avoid vision by going straight into the pit, but this is already pinged out by the side of SANDBOX. It is going to be warded here.
And Afreeca just trying to get this Rift Herald. Again, just like in game number 1, it's super important to use that Rift Herald in order to get damage onto that mid-tier 1 turret of Azir, because otherwise, you don't have a reliable way to ever take it at any other point in the game. This time around, they do have a Zoe, which with her bubbles and her paddle stars, it can help with sieging. You also do have the equalizer and things of that nature, but now taking a look at the XP, Afreeca actually in the lead in several spots. Now Lonely waiting for this giant minion wave to come in. They're sharing a lot of XP. Punches here. Jelly doesn't have 6.
Jelly
so if they try...
Punch just got 6 in the brush, but it is going to be warded out. So they spot Punch. And no summon on Shelly, actually. I mean, they still have 5 minutes, so they can take their time with that.
Well, they crash the bot wave, and then they initiate a recall. They're now trying to match the one from Afreeca, but they're really far behind on tempo while doing this. You can see Afreeca now are actually recalling. I'm not sure if they're gonna go back bottom and just have Keen move up through mid lane and then make his way back to top, or no, they're gonna move back up to top lane. Bilgewater Cutlass now complete on the Lucian, haunting guys. First item for Keen up there in top lane. Now, the thing about this is it means that neither team will be in close proximity with their bot laners for the next dragon, which is a little bit surprising because if you're Afreeca, you want to be the one to take that Ocean Drake and then pray that the 50% roll goes your way and that Mountain comes up next so that you can try to threaten Mountain Soul really early.
Absolutely. And we will see if that does pan out for them. We do see that Keen and Spirit were making their way towards mid, as really not much is happening as it currently stands. The junglers just going ahead and farming. Everybody extremely even on CS, by the way. If you look down at the bottom, it's only a gap of 1 to 3 CS in every single lane, so very even game so far when it does come to that. Of course, the Drake a slight advantage to Afreeca so far in this one.
20 seconds until that Ocean Drake is up, as Root just idly attacking this minion wave, taking a little bit of damage from the minions, not too much though. And is he gonna just, no, he's gonna, I think he's gonna stay to shove out the next wave. There's really no reason to try to recall. You're already too late in terms of tempo to be able to get anywhere meaningful. It's a lot better if Gorilla and Root stay top lane and just try to get turret plates rather than just aimlessly recalling. And you can see that Afreeca acknowledges that SANDBOX is not interested at all in trying to contest. And so as a byproduct of that, they try to send Mystic back up to top lane. Root does recover in the CS department from what he was down earlier. Also has a turret plate now under his belt. And we're just sort of going blow for blow. Now, SANDBOX is actually ahead in terms of overall gold. And we're entering the stage of the game where it's early into mid-transition. Azir's going to complete his Nashor's Tooth now this time around. And Set's going to complete his Black Cleaver, so F's in chat for that one. But it's going very similar to game number 1, so you have to ask yourself, how is Afreeca going to win?
It's definitely a good question. At least they are going to put down the Rift Heralds here and try to get some plates for Keen, it looks like, but okay, it's just going to go the way of Fly, and actually the jungler is engaged from the right side as this Rumble is dead. Just immediately, just like that, a huge collapse coming in, and a big interrupt there from the side of SANDBOX. That's going to make it 2 kills now, as yes, they got some plates, but they paid dearly for it.
Well, Mystic is trying to stay up in top lane, doing whatever he possibly can. These deaths are the opposite of what is good, Valdez.
Oh no.
As Gorilla Punch and Root are looking to do something, but gonna actually be dissuaded by the damage that was coming out of Mystic. Very cautious right there. Now, they don't have Braum ultimate. They do have Exhaust, and I believe they have the Sejuani ultimate too, but very peculiar how reserved they're being right there. They do know that Keen has teleport when he does respawn, so perhaps just erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, definitely not a decision that you see a lot of teams make. Maybe that's someone like Gorilla on the support role that's kind of, you know, giving them all the information that allows them to be that cautious. It's a very curious maneuver for sure.
Well, at this point, 2.5 minutes until Cloud Dragon coming up, and fortunately for SANDBOX, they rolled fantastic. That Cloud Dragon poses no threat to them whatsoever, which means that unless the stars really align for them to be in a good spot, have lane states in a good spot, and it to be a good idea for them to move over and try to contest it or just capture it freely, they're fine now to just sit back and be like, okay, we can wait another 7 minutes to actually get more core items, increase the percentage chance that it's likely that we're going to win a team fight, And then Afreeca, again, they're staring at a bomb that is going to go off, and they don't have a real solution to it. And now Zoe ends up being exposed in this team comp because she's the only one that can actually do anything, but she doesn't have a team to protect her and allow her to do what she wants to try to do. So it's a very awkward situation to be in. It's only a 1,000 gold lead, but it really can't be understated that SANDBOX are really far ahead.
Yes, definitely sitting back and saying, okay, we've got another lead in the early game. Let's do what we did in game number 1 and sit back, farm, allow Dove to eventually scale up. They have Root and a lot of hard CC to get into backlines. Root already with 1 kill. Things are just going fantastically here for SANDBOX, and this is a great turnaround for them. I mean, we were talking about how things looked really dire, and Summit wasn't even playing, and how it just did not look great for them in recent times. They're down there towards the bottom of the standings, but coming in here and defeating Afreeca, if they do close this game out, that would be a huge positive mark on their record.
Well, let's see if they can manage to do that. It's a very big victory for them, especially because Afreeca is on the left side of the standing. This isn't a victory that SANDBOX probably would have been assumed to be able to get early on. As many viewers, myself included, probably came into this thinking, well, Afreeca should be the clear favorites for today's match, and yet here SANDBOX is, they're up 1-0, they're in a really good position here in game number 2 to win this. And if everything just keeps going and coasting at the rate that it is right now, all that's going to happen is very similar to game number 1. There's going to be a mid-game explosive team fight. SANDBOX likely going to be the victors unless something goes catastrophically wrong.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the game plays out. Of course, there's still room for some human error when it does come into this one. The Cloud Drake is available, and you can see that SANDBOX is actually favoring this. They get the push down on the bottom side. Afreeca's nowhere near, so just going to give this one away. As you mentioned, even if Afreeca did get this, it's really not a big deal at all.
No.
Even if they're on Cloud sold point, it's like, okay, sure, we can get other objectives, but I feel like SANDBOX is just saying, we might as well get this one. They leave a little bit of damage to be gone onto the top turret, but he's probably going to fall anyway, as Lucian will get some solo farm up there. Notice that Jelly not going to steal any of that XP. And now, I believe, we are slowly settling into a lull state.
We are. And what would you like to talk about today, Valdez?
Well, we talked about Animal Crossing yesterday.
We did. I got it yesterday.
What?
After the cast ended.
No.
I was
Really?
tempted. Yes, I did. I had
Did you
to.
get the
I spent
copy?
like 3 hours fiddling with the Switch and stuff because the Korean region language, and trying to figure out how I could get an Animal Crossing code, and I finally did it.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really big.
I'm taking a lot of. I have a lot of inspiration from some of the characters in that game I've heard about. Apparently, there's one guy and everyone owes a lot of debt to him. And I just think, wow, that guy's a businessman I would like to follow.
He probably gets a lot of Prime subs, if we had to imagine.
He probably does.
I would get the game too, but yeah, I don't have a Switch still. I didn't go out and buy a Switch after the cast either. I'm not as smart as you, unfortunately. So
Totally fine.
yeah, you know, some people are just gifted, and others are not.
Well,
So it feels bad.
you know what, Valdez? I think that you are very gifted.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you.
I feel gifted to be here with you today.
Wow. You know,
3 minutes until the Cloud Dragon comes up, but I already feel like I'm living on a cloud with you here, Valdez.
yeah, thankfully we're here. I mean, I wonder what the collective would do. Imagine if we just like streamed the games and there was no cast. Just, like during the lull state, I think the collective would just explode.
think the collective would start analyzing what's going on.
You think so?
Yeah, I do believe they would understand.
Yeah.
As right now, I mean, what they're understanding in this game is that ping pong is happening for the last 2.5 minutes.
You know what I think they might analyze is they're probably saying, you know, they have to push the lanes back because you need to pressure the objectives. Because that's how you win. Right? That's...
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's...
I do believe that is correct. So, if you're Afreeca right now, and with every moment that passes, the enemy team gets stronger than yours, what are you thinking right now, Valdez, when you mindlessly push each wave back and forth over and over and over and over? That's spelled with O-V-E-R. What do you think?
Okay. Well, is there an option not to think? Like, maybe just not thinking is an option.
I do suppose that could be a thing. As the problem is, Afreeca, they can't just randomly start Baron. And anytime blue trinkets are available, or if SANDBOX is in close proximity, it's never going to be a real thing. If you disappear too long from any of the lanes, then SANDBOX can use deductive reasoning, conclude, okay, they're probably somewhere around river. Can we approach the Fog of War as if we're expecting them to be in X, Y, and Z brushes or locations? And of course you can. And so, it's really problematic right now for Afreeca to come up with anything meaningful. And because SANDBOX got the last dragon, it means that Soul's not even coming up. And interestingly enough, this could be a 4 Cloud Drake Cloud Soul, which is a Crown Soul method. So, if Crown Soul goes over, that's really interesting. 40% ultimate CDR is not something that we normally get to see all that often in the LCK, or any region for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that teams will favor it so hard to the point, and it's rare also that teams give up the first 2 Drakes and then get 4 in a row. Because generally, if you're ahead, you're going to get Drakes, you're going to be able to snowball them and at least pick up 1 along the way. But
yeah,
not the case in some games where, you know, we had a relatively lowly early game, very slow early game, a couple kills back and forth. But then, you know, just 1 or 2 mistakes in the mid game by Afreeca.
Here we go.
Yeah, okay.
You ready for this?
Here we go. Cloud Drake is live.
Here's that mid-game team fight. Now, again, SANDBOX, they don't have to opt into this. Now, watch as Zoe is the really only hope Afreeca has in this team fight. Everyone else not sitting pretty. Spirit feels like he wanted to make a bit of a donation, donated 30% of his life away.
Oh, he's given more. Oh, man.
He's at 50%.
Yeah. And you mentioned how Zoe, it's going to go the way of Sejuani. The Cataclysm into flash play is going to be the play here for Spirit.
Punched it so good he stole it twice.
Nicely done getting into that back line. Now they burst down Kane. He's immediately going to go down. Nice knockup by Jelly. He's going to find 4 of them. Can they actually get into this one? The Azir, though, into the back line, and Mystic, not having enough room, is going to put that culling out, but he doesn't have enough room to just go front to back here, although we did have Zoe finally snipe out the Braum as a flash forward there, not going to amount to much. The shield coming in onto Mystic, and now SANDBOX say, okay, we got the Drake, let's just get back.
Well, this is, it's time to return the script to G-Sun, Valdez, as, I do believe that that's probably all that she wrote in this game. Second dragon, I mean, the dragon itself isn't what happened, it's that this is going to be the closest that these 2 team compositions ever are in terms of a straight-up team fight. And you can see, it's really the Zoe show in this game. Lucian can't do anything. He can't get close quarter combat. Mystic was trying his best to deal everything that he could. What is Jarvan really going to do against this team composition? Kai'Sa, able to make use of both of her modes. She can either shred through everything that's in front of her, or she can eventually dive onto the backline. And if you're not protecting Zoe, Kai'Sa will just light her up. And that is a really big problem. There's no one to kill Set. You give him full stack Haymaker in any team fight that you're going to take because of the Rumble and the Jarvan. Lucian can't even focus him. Sejuani is just a Leviathan that Afreeca has no answer for. There's no getting onto Azir. It all comes down to one small is Zoe a child, or is she like 1,000?
Yeah, she's like 5 billion years old or something.
All right, thank you for saving me on that one, Valdez.
No, and you know, it's a question again. Like, imagine if they had some kind of scaling AD carry, something with range. I feel like, you know, it still wouldn't be ideal as a full team comp, but I'm really not sold on the Lucian myself, especially straight into, what was it? It was Kai'Sa, Set, and Sejuani as the first 3 picks, and then they picked Lucian. I don't know, it's just like you get a Braum in the front and immediately he gets exhausted. And then it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to have to hold that thought as Keen is going to get caught out here once again. He's burning down Root. He's doing a good job there, but he's still caught. So down he will go. 5 on 4 now. Nope. I mean, there is the Baron, but SANDBOX are on the wrong side. You can see them trying to rotate up to the mid lane. But I don't think they're going to rush a Baron or anything at this point anyway.
And, well, we'll see what can go on here as SANDBOX are sieging the mid-tier 1 turret. Afreeca don't really have clear options. They have to just wait for Zoe, Bubbles, and Paddle Stars to try to carry them through. And also, take a look at Fly's itemization. So he had the Oblivion Orb, which is fine. You have the Oblivion Orb, you have the Sword Penetration Boots. That's where the real brunt of Morello's value comes from. No one on SANDBOX is healing. There's no one that is actively trying to heal and do anything. Yes, you have a Fleet Footwork. Sure, you have a Doran's Blade on Kai'Sa, which probably, maybe that's why the Morello came in. But Fly, in a lull state right now, completed into Morello, and it serves no purpose, and it's really staggered his build, because it means that he's not going to get to another meaningful item before the next major team fight that inevitably will bring the game to Soul Point.
Yeah, I mean, just putting it into simple terms, 1,400 gold that was used to turn Oblivion Orb into Morello could have been used to jumpstart his next item.
Right. And so now, with the Blasting Wand, he has the Blasting Wand already. He has a Dark Seal, which he could sell at any point. A Corrupting Potion he could sell at any point. The Blasting Wand, plus the 1,400 gold, you almost got a Void Staff, which is really valuable at this point in the game. And before the next dragon comes up, if you sell the Corrupting plus the Dark Seal, plus whatever gold Zoe's sitting on, you probably have it for this team fight, which is a lot more valuable than just having the Morello debuff and the Blasting Wand by itself, plus a little bit of the extra stat amplification that comes from the Dark Seal, and the Corrupting Potion, because Zoe needs to delete someone or bring them really close to life, and having as much pen as she possibly can right now is really going to help with that.
Oh boy, Jelly, rough spot here, forced to pop that ultimate early. And that means Zeke's is down, that means his ultimate is down, that means the next team fight should absolutely be SANDBOX's. And it's a ticking time bomb for Afreeca. They're struggling to defuse it, but they're making mistake after mistake. SANDBOX is taking advantage of that. The trouble bubble gonna come down here as Lonely will just step in front of that one. They pick up the Cloud Drake. And now 5 minutes until they get a 4 Cloud Drake, the Crown Drake, Crown Soul, I suppose you can call it there. As Afreeca thinking about poking him down, doing a decent job, but they're not going to be able to garner any objectives from that play.
And I'm really curious to see what this is going to look like if SANDBOX does get to that 40% ultimate CDR with champions that they do stack CDR. So Kai'Sa right now does have some CDR from Nashor's Tooth. Azir is, I believe, at max CDR. I'm forgetting actually what his secondary rune is. I am so sorry. But when he has the blue buff, he's going to be at max CDR. And this is really scary. Set, obviously, is going to be moving really fast. And this is really interesting. It's not every day that we do get to see this. Obviously, we don't have a super chaotic champion like Zillion or Echo in this game that really just make that Crown Soul so gross and obnoxious for enemies to try to deal with. But it's still going to be exciting to see it unfold. SANDBOX doing everything right. Azir sitting on Oblivion Orb, has the Sword Pen boots, although with only 3.5 minutes till the next dragon, this might be one of the times where just getting Morello could probably be okay. You have the option to obviously get Haunting Guys for 100 gold more, but if you need as much power as you can possibly pack for this final team fight around this Dragon Soul, that might be an option for him. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he does end up completing here. Lonely has been he's turned into the bully. He got bullied in game 1, and then he's like, hey, you know what, dude? Let me play this set. I'm going to show you what's up. He's, with the help of his teammates, he's put Keen down to 0-4-0, and is in their jungle, in their face, not allowing Keen much room to push out at all. Of course, for right now, there is not much that's going to happen until the Cloud Drake does spawn. Of course, we get these mini lull states in between the dragon fights, as of course Afreeca don't really have any way to get onto the Baron and burst it down or anything like that. It would be not a good idea, and so they're just trying to get some vision around it, see what they can see. A Spirit has been seen. He poked a little bit, but
He built it.
he did.
See? Now he's got the most punch possible. There's always the positives, Valdez. There's always the silver lining. As we take a look at the
Is
XP.
that 1,400 gold better than just a needlessly large rod?
You know what? He's going to apply it to some of the champions that will heal a bit. Alright?
Does that make it better in the end? I mean, what is it, the Blasting Wand and the, what is it, 100 health?
So you get you get 50 AP, 100 health, and the Grievous Wounds passive is what you end up receiving. So at that point, I mean, Azir, if he ends up getting this at this point, perhaps, because it doesn't just reduce the active healing of Conqueror or the active healing of the Blade of the Ruin King, it also stunts the passive HP regen on champions. So it sort of is dealing true damage, and to that extent, it adds up to a bit of damage. Maybe he's even going to be able to actually have an elixir if he would want to recall. He has a minute to get to it. But not too much else is really happening inside of this game. You just see ping pong continuing to happen. We're only at 10 kills in 32 minutes. But
Azir pushes really fast.
he does.
How does he keep those soldiers in line?
Mind control.
Yeah, I guess that must be it, right? They are sand soldiers, so they don't exist, and then all of a sudden they exist. He controls them. And,
Well.
yep, that allows him to push really fast. And,
Oh, he got the elixir. You know what? Dove is getting the MVP vote from me. Okay.
He already did get the MVP vote. He's getting another one.
He
Perhaps.
actually, he's ghosting the English broadcast right now, Valdez. That's actually what's happening.
It's like, you know what? That's a good idea. Shouldn't forget my elixir. You were talking about how Zoe's kind of the only hope. You see Punch's health? That's what she did. From
Yeah.
a really long range paddle star.
And that's all that they really have going for them. Now, actually, are we going to have a potential front door? I mean, obviously, they don't have the speed to raise the Nexus turrets as well, but they're walking right up mid lane. They're going to raise this mid-tier 3 turret, and I think they're going to get the inhibitor as well. Now, the inhibitor's a little bit scary, because Afreeca is already going to always be in close proximity to the Baron in mid and top lane, and so all that they ended up doing is, now they've created super minions rather than just cannon minions, but if they win the fight anyway, they were probably going to win regardless of if it's a super minion or a cannon minion. So realistically, there's a chance that they just ended up denying themselves 5 minutes worth of mid lane minions, depending on what Afreeca does.
Yeah, I mean, it does depend on what they do, of course. I don't think they're going to freeze and allow a bunch of the waves to go to waste. In fact, they're going to push out as fast as possible. They've got a big flamethrower. They have to use it. And they're going to do that. They're going to move over to the Baron here and try to deny some vision, try to get Zoe some use, but it might just be an exercise in futility at this point. Dove and Gorilla hanging around here. as 5 members of Afreeca look to engage, but Punch coming in from behind. They're trying to go in the front side here. Big equalizer into the backline. Dub. Oh, and a really perfect stopwatch as Keen is desperately trying to do it. It doesn't matter how well he plays because he's still going to get dominated at this point in the game. Down will go Jelly at the same time, make that 3, as now SANDBOX will turn to the Baron.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing it time and time again in all of these team fights. The gold score isn't even really that different at so many stages of this game, but it's just so hard for Afreeca to find angles over and over. And now SANDBOX, they're the ones with the Baron. This Baron is going to persist into the Crown Soul coming up. They're going to be able to get that for certain if they don't even just manage to win the game before it comes up.
Yeah, I mean, they've opened up the front door. They've blasted that door off the hinges. As we'll take another look here at the fight, the flank, really great from Punch.
Yeah, so you can see Afreeca, they're trying to do everything that they possibly can, but Lonely with their superplex from downtown into Facebreaker, Haymaker landing as well, 957 true damage. I mean, it's decent. As Jelly tries to run for his life, but Punch chasing him down. And at the end of this, it's just total control in SANDBOX. They have broken free of the SANDBOX. They are headed to the ocean. They're going to the ship balance.
It all connects. It all makes sense in the end.
We're all coming full circle.
Time is a flat circle. That's what we're doing here. And we've definitely seen this before. As Equalizer is going to come down. It'll clear out 1. But it will not be available for the next fight, as they'll just push in with the Baron. As you mentioned, they're not going to wait for the Cloud Trick. They're going to try to get as much value out of this Baron push. SANDBOX, once again, they're playing very carefully. It feels like, to be honest, they've spent the last 15 days of LCK hiatus, and they've done exercises in how to slowly play games, because they were just so fast and loose before. That it definitely does look like a bit of a different SANDBOX here in the series against Afreeca.
It really does. They're coming out so strong here. They're now sieging the Nexus turrets. We might see one final last stand. This is the alternate ending to Helm's Deep, because I just don't see a way. There is no Gandalf coming over this mountain.
Okay, well, they get the combo down, and it just does not matter at this point. Even Gorilla, okay, well, he is going to go down. Dub going to just slap the 2 members that tried to get into that back line, as Keen, again, gonna get stunned up and smacked here by Lonely in the front. Not gonna be able to save that damage onto Punch, as Fly is desperately trying to do something in this game, but is not going to be able to, as even the Trouble Bubble is going to miss. And down will go the Nexus, as SANDBOX will take the 2-0.
They get the 2-0 win in what I think many would consider an upset here today. And they looked very clean while doing it. Obviously had some massive help coming from the draft phase. And they just played it out really clean. And a lot of the problems that... It's not even just with Afreeca. It's persistent in the LCK in general. Really got shown here today in this opening series, where Afreeca, they had a team composition that has clear identities for what it needs to do. The laners aren't going to interact with the jungler. Jungler can't interact with the laners if they don't do it for him first. And then once the mid game hits, ping pong back and forth into an inevitable mid game climax that really just swings the motion into the winning team's favor, that has a much better team composition.
Yeah, and so LS, you are now 10 for 10 for drafts after the start of the remote LCK. How does it feel?
Feels pretty good. I hope that I have the stat from all of spring 2020. I'm really eager to see it. What the ratio is actually going to be like.
I know I had analysts on that.
I do actually.
Nice.
I have people going back through the VODs and listening to the pick bands to try to see what the number was. I had about 80% at Worlds. I'm curious what I can get here for Spring 2020 LCK.
Even 80% is crazy. Because if you imagine that, pro teams are all on a pro level, right? and then 80% of the games are determined by a stronger draft. It's pretty insane when you think about it.
And I had tweeted out actually before the second game actually happened. Draft is not a thing that you just watch a couple of YouTube videos and read a couple of articles and suddenly understand. If that were the case, in trading card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, suddenly everyone would be a really high-rated limited player, and that's just not the case. There's a reason that entertaining lots of different variables in a draft phase, putting pieces together, understanding how certain champ selects or certain champion selections might pinch or dissuade certain ones, etc., can all just really line into it. And I think if round 2 keeps looking like this, we're in store for very similar games and very similar playouts.
Yeah, would not be surprising if that does end up happening here, as this was about as close as it was going to get, as you mentioned. I mean, that was the fight where the two teams were going to be on the, as the game goes on, it's just going to get more tilted in SANDBOX's favor. So the fact that Afreeca weren't able to win that fight kind of spelled defeat from there, as Set is a good champion. You guys will see in just a moment. Lonely had a great game, by the way. After a rough start, getting bullied in Game 1, came into Game 2 and decided, you know what? I'm going to beat up my bullies, actually. I'm going to take this into my own hands. Had a good laning phase, and a couple of great pickoffs in the mid-game into great team fights later on. It was quite fantastic, so shout out to Lonely.
Yeah. He had a really good performance here on the set. Definitely redeemed himself in game number 2. Dove did a fantastic job as well, though, this game, and so wouldn't be too surprised if he does end up getting the MVP. I voted for Lonely. I'm not sure about who you voted. Okay, so, all right.
Yeah. It's that caster.
I'm very impressed. It is. Yeah.
We work together.
As we do. As take a look at the damage chart, Azir topping it. Zoe tried to do her best this game, but it just wasn't set up. Afreeca, they tried to pivot off theme on R5 to save it. It was really just too far behind. If some people are wondering, well, what would have been a better champion in a spot like this to try to control things? One of the first thoughts in my mind is actually Veigar. Would have been a pretty good R5 spot for Afreeca. Veigar, lots of control against Set, Sejuani, Kai'Sa, and even Braum, in a lot more surface area control with the Rumble and the Jarvan. Not really sure it would have changed too much inside of the game, but it would have been a lot better than Zoe, for instance. And the Braum pick ended up working out. We talked about how the Galio on B5 might have even been another viable option, depending on how aggressive Afreeca wanted to keep barreling down, but they tried to recalibrate. It was way too late. Player of the game is going to be Lonely. 2-1 and 8 on the set.
Cool. Gotta like it. Newer player coming in, has to fill giant shoes in Summit, and then decides he's going to take Game 2 into his own hands, showing Keen how it's done on the set. He was able to have multiple great engages here in the mid-game, as I was talking about. He had his Keen, and always seemed to make the most of every team play. He was great on the engage, and really just did his job to the best of his ability here on the set.
Yeah. Did a really good job with his superplexes, his face breakers as well, grit, and he's able to get the haymaker stacked up so easily because of what the opponent is trying to achieve inside of their team fights, and it's just so good. He has such nice angles because everyone is trying to get on top of each other, and so Set has a really easy time landing everything. He's a really good champion in this game here. And SANDBOX, it's going to be nice to hear from Lonely. Doubt that we're going to hear what's going on from Summit or anything like that. I'm really curious about that, but it was good to see their substitute top laner, as someone on the Korean desk is sinning, voted for Kai'Sa as MVP. Wait, it was the same person last vote, right?
What?
Or no, it was the two observers.
Yeah, that was the observers.
Okay.
Yeah, someone on the Korean desk decided that Kai'Sa deserved it. I forgot that they had a Kai'Sa on their team. It's just like, wasn't even the main part. It was all the Set, Sejuani, and the Azir. In that one, to be honest, even the Braum, I feel like, had a bigger effect on the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, for you guys who are tuning in today who didn't see yesterday for some reason, we do have interviews, in fact, with the players that are playing from their houses. They get on the stream and they get on the video call, and of course we do have Jisun to translate that once it does get set up. And it's always interesting to hear from the players. We are doing the remote broadcast, so me and LS, of course, casting from home, which is why we're sitting extremely still, staring directly into your soul every time we are on camera and not moving.
I just want people to think of this image when they're considering certain item purchases. This is the exact face that we're giving them.
Yeah.
As we take a look at the standings now,
I look really angry in the picture,
Genji
actually.
still in first place. T1 is coming up next. And while they won't be able to get into first place, they will try to be able to separate themselves further apart from DRX. A loss would actually put them below DRX. So they're fighting to solidify their second place standings and trying to continue to chase after Genji. Afreeca getting really scarily close to KT now, as
I can
KT...
definitely see KT overtaking Afreeca.
Yeah, and who would have thought that? KT making a run for the top 4, maybe even top 3, depending on what happens in following matches, as Damwon continuing to struggle. Really big win for SANDBOX, 3-7. Now, as they're really fighting to get out of the relegation zone. We had a very similar thing all throughout 2019. We're having it again here, where the bottom 4 teams are really neck and neck and just struggling to sort of stay afloat out of that relegation area.
Yeah, it is all about getting out of relegation, and if they could pull off something like KT is doing, maybe even getting over to the west side and potential at playoffs. It's still early on in round 2. This is, of course, technically, I guess we're getting into the 3rd day after this series. But, yeah, I mean, there's still time. As we've said before, like, the highest amount of losses you can get into the playoffs with, I think, is 9. So, that's, we could see how that goes. But either way, guys, we do have the interview coming. I'm going to hand it over to Jisun for the translation.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much, guys. Let's hear from Dove and Lonely from
아, 네,
SANDBOX.
맞아요. 저 동입니다.
So we'll be having a audio call interview actually.
안녕하세요.
So this is Dove
네네.
and Lonely.
네, 맞아요.
Lonely born in 2000.
감사합니다.
And the birthday is on August 29th. Very young player coming in LCK. And there could have been a bit of a pressure coming in today's match, especially going against Afreeca and trying new things with Lonely and Punch. Did you guys feel extra pressure?
딱히 막 남다른 건 없었고.
Nothing really, to be
오늘
honest.
경기 이길 것 같았습니다.
I thought we were gonna win today.
네,
Did the practice go well?
네네.
Yes.
그냥 좀
I
준비된
mean,
픽을
we were able to get
연습할 때 써보니까
the picks that we
Everybody has to-
practiced, and we did really well during
팀적으로
the
좀 잘하는 것
practice,
같아서
and we had a very good teamwork as a whole. So if we get rid of the mistakes, we thought that we will get a good result. So you had a bit of a hard time in game number 1, though. What did your teammates told you? Nothing much, nothing special. I was a bit lonely, to be honest. So I want to ask you, especially to you, Lonely, because Kiin is one of the strongest top laners in LCK, and also you played against Rathka in your debut game as well.
오늘 그래도
Well,
때는
I mean, in
힘들었는데
game number 1, I had the hard time, but game number 2 was okay. So this is your first POG, Lonely,
네.
and your first match win in LCK.
네네.
How are you feeling?
일단 데뷔 이후에 이제 첫
Well,
팀이라서 정말 기분도 좋고
I'm really happy to get the first win
생각보다-
after the debut.
빨리 이긴 것 같아서
And I think we won faster than I expected, so it's a big relief.
약간 부담감이 좀 있었던 것 같은데 두 분은 어떤 궁금증이 있나요? 혹시 론니 선수에게?
Any questions for Lonely?
없군요. 론니 선수에게 별로 없었네.
궁금증이요?
도브 선수.
Then let's move on to Dove.
네, 지금 론니 선수가
네네네.
신인으로서 좀 잘해주잖아요.
So Lonely did a lot of work today. Do you
잘해줬다고요?
agree? Did he?
잘했어요.
I mean,
이게 잘
Yeah,
들리지가
I
않아가지고
had
다시
bad
한번
reception.
제가
I agree. I think he did a great work.
오늘 기준이 론니 선수가
Well,
좀 잘 해줬던 것 같고
I think
최근에
Lonely
이제
definitely did a great job
스크림에서도
today, and
굿잘
especially during the
해줬기
scrims.
때문에
Recently, he
오늘도
was doing a lot of work. He was performing so well. I guess Lonely was the main character of this new lineup, but actually, Dove, you were also the main character in terms of the calls.
일단은 좀 크게 바뀐 쪽이 뭐
Nothing?
탑정글 쪽이겠죠? 이제
Well, I want
탑정글
to
쪽에
say that
떴는데
top and
이제
jungle change
규준이랑
was the
이제
biggest
론니
thing,
선수랑 펀치 선수가
but Lonely and
연습
Punch during the
경기를 같이
practice
하면서
together,
실수가 거의 안 나오고
they
기본적으로
barely
다
made
잘
mistakes.
해준다고 생각을 해서
And also, they were having great
대회를
mechanics,
하면서 같은
so
경우도
we weren't really worried about trying new lineup before going into match.
내 목소리가 좀 울려가지고.
아니에요.
오늘 일단 아드리를 들고 나오면서 1세트부터
And
굉장히 좀
you
좋은 장면들이
got
많이
the
있었는데
POG
어떻습니까?
on
좀 뱀픽
Azir,
상황에서도 만족감이 좀 있었나요?
pulling off great performance in game number 1.
뱀픽은 솔직히 코치님하고 감독님이
Well,
정말
draft
잘해줬다고
is,
생각을 해갖고
I think
좀
our
게임
coach
플레이
and
자체도
head
좀
coach,
성장한
coaching
것
staff
같아요.
did a great work.
상체가 원래 기존에 있었던 그 서밋 선수,
네네.
온플릭 선수도 굉장히 좀 좋은 모습을 많이
But
보여줬던
Summit and
선수이기
Onflick
때문에
also
느낌적으로
indeed
좀 약간
pulled
다르지
off
않을까라는
great
궁금증을 많이
performance.
갖고
So we were
계시거든요.
thinking of new dynamic coming out of SANDBOX.
느낌 좀 단순하게 얘기하면 이제 서밋
put it
선수하고
simple,
온플릭
Summit
선수는 좀
and Onflick,
감각적으로 한다고
they're
해야 되나?
like
뭐
sensitive
그런
style
쪽으로
player,
되게 좀
you know,
스플나게
following
잘한다고
their
생각을 해서
instincts.
그냥
They're really good
장단점이
at it.
다르다고 생각해요.
이 두 명의 선수 그
So I
말씀을
think
좀
those
해주셨고.
that is the main difference.
네, 와디들은 도부 선수,
And
도부
Dove,
선수. 네, 와디들은 궁금한 게 없답니다.
I guess Wadid has nothing to ask. Well, so today in Korean casters ask, Call Templar and Wadid is joined by some caster. So we are trying to get some questions from them.
아 그럼요.
How have you
이거 잘
been,
지내죠? 네.
Dove?
일단 도부
Well,
선수는
I've
승리
been
진짜
doing
어떻게
great.
보면은 험난했잖아요. 1라운드 마무리 지었을 때.
Dove, well, first round robin was really rough.
기대했었던
you know?
그 기대치가 엄청 높았었고.
Yeah, it was indeed hard.
근데 지금은 어떻게 보면 2라운드 출발
네네.
자체가
Because fans were expecting a lot more from SANDBOX. Well, it was not an easy round one. However, coming into round 2, you guys are pulling off great performance. So, any last
네네.
message for the fans?
우선은
First
2라운드
of all,
첫 승을 좀 바로 걷어가지고
well,
정말 일단
I'm really happy that we were able to instantly get a win with the start of second round robin. So, I want to make it up to my fans in round 2.
끝으로 론리 선수
And lastly, Lonely.
사진 찍을 때 어떤 생각했어요?
네네.
I like your cute poster. You know, did you see that? The
네,
POG shot?
POG 사진이요?
I think that's really
그냥
cute.
딱히 생각나는 게 없었는데 옆에서 이제
Well,
그냥
during the
페이크
photo
선수가-
shoot, I had no
페이크
idea
선수가-
what pose to do.
레오 선수요. 레오 선수가
But
그냥
Leo ran next to me.
갱플
He told me to
갱플
do a
선수
GP
해가지고.
posture.
표정이 좀 복잡 다달해
The GP ultimate pose.
무슨 생각을 했는지 궁금했거든요.
That was the story behind that pose.
늘 그냥
하지만
딱히
일단
생각
레오의 도움
없었던 것
때문에
So
찍었다는
I had
거.
no big
그래서 지금
intention
론리 선수라는
for
이름
that
자체를
pose, to be
지난번에
honest.
이어서 오늘 확실히 각인이 된 것 같거든요.
I think Lonely, you
팬
did
여러분께 한 말씀
have a game
부탁드리겠습니다.
that
네.
made the fans
지켜봐달라고.
remember your name. So any last message for the fans?
이거 일단 채팅해가지고
I'm really happy that
예,
we got the
팬분들도
first
좋아하실 것
win.
같고,
I bet
저희가 바로
the
내일
fans will be really happy as
내일도
well.
이겨가지고
But we have another match coming in
팬분들께
tomorrow, so I want to get another win tomorrow.
좋은 모습 보여드리겠습니다.
And
네, 론리 선수
show my
바로 이
fans
사진이었죠.
great
제가
performance.
순간 사진 한번 바꿔드려봤어요. 인상 깊었습니다. 자, 도부 선수와 론리 선수 다시
So
한번 승리
this will be
축하드리겠습니다.
the end of the
고맙습니다.
interview from Dove Lonely from
네,
SANDBOX,
아,
picking up
역시
2-2
샌드박스
victory up
이런
against
이야기를
Afreeca
한번
Freecs, and I'm gonna
들어봤습니다.
pass it back to
아직까지
our
론리
global
선수-
casters. Thank you.
So, thank you, G-Sun, for the wonderful translation. As always, we will see you in the next series, of course. As, yeah, so that was a 2-0 for SANDBOX. Not something we expected LS, but that does mean that we will move on to the next series after a 10-minute break.
Yeah.
Because we are doing this online, of course, the breaks will be shorter, and we will speed along on our remote broadcast. As looks like we're just about ready. The Korean caster's going nuts on the screen, talking about something. Can't actually hear what they're saying, but either way, guys, the next match is going to be T1 up against APK, so we will be back in 10 minutes for that next matchup.